my dad and his brother, and our family was really saved by Carl Laemmle. It's a pretty amazing story.
Yeah, I don't think he ever made a big deal out of it. It just came naturally.
No,
The fact that he was
right.
instrumental in saving a lot of Jews.
Welcome to Amusing Jews, where we celebrate Jewish contributors and contributions to American popular culture. I'm Jonathan Friedmann.
And I'm Joey Angelfield.
Producer-engineer Mike Tomren is working somewhere behind the scenes. Amusing Jews is a project of Adat Chaverim Congregation for Humanistic Judaism, the Jewish Museum of the American West, and Atheists United Studios. Hey, Joey. Holocaust remembrance shines a well-deserved light on the righteous among the nations, non-Jews who risked their lives to save Jews. People like Oskar Schindler, Shioni Sugihara, and Raoul Wallenberg. But what about righteous Jews, those who saved fellow Jews from the Holocaust? Prominent among them was Hollywood film pioneer Carl Laemmle.
We're delighted to talk with Deborah F. Blum, an artist, educator, and documentary filmmaker whose latest film is Laemmle's List. Deborah, welcome to Amusing Jews.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Carl Laemmle, the German-born founder of Universal Pictures, was your great-grandfather's first cousin. What did you hear about Carl growing up?
To be honest, I really heard very, very little about Uncle Carl or Carl Laemmle. I grew up going to the Laemmle theaters that were run by my uncle Bob Laemmle, and my grandfather had been involved in that business and starting it but then had left in the 50s, but we still had our family pass and we went to the theaters all the time. And I was very proud of that connection to the Laemmle theaters. But I really only vaguely heard something about how we might be related to the founder of Universal Studios, but that was, and that was it. But I knew that we had movie theaters that showed really amazing independent and foreign films. So I really didn't feel connected to Hollywood per se. I felt connected to filmmakers and independent filmmakers and foreign filmmakers. Like that was what I grew up on, a diet of foreign films and indie films, honestly, which is what helped me become a filmmaker, I believe, actually. So it was pretty special, actually. That aspect, it was very special.
What inspired you to first discover Laemmle's legacy and second, document that process on film?
Well, what inspired me actually was returning to live in Los Angeles after I lived overseas. I was teaching at a Waldorf school in Kenya, actually. I lived for 3 years there, and the people were very inspired by their ancestors there. And I came back to Los Angeles with the family, but also did meet my husband Warren then, and he was from Hollywood, and we went to Universal Studios together because I knew I was related somehow, but and I wanted to learn more, and somehow that seemed like the place to start. But then I just was completely just in awe of what had been achieved there and how successful it was. And I said, how could I not know anything about Carl Laemmle or my connection to Carl Laemmle? So I began reaching out to a lot of family members, asking questions. And actually, Greg helped by sending me the out-of-print biography of Carl Laemmle. And other family started sharing what they knew. So I started kind of just collecting as much evidence as I could. And it just became a real mystery to me and I love mysteries. So I mean, I did check and see if there was a documentary available to watch to learn about Carl Laemmle or a really good history about his life. But there really wasn't anything except, so that in a way kept me going because I felt there was a lot that needed to be figured out. I was amazed that there hadn't been more. That wasn't if there was already a full-length documentary available, I might have not done this, but it just became this big mystery that I had to unravel and piece together.
Yeah, he does seem to get short shrifted to an extent when we're talking about the Hollywood moguls. He was the first to come over to Hollywood, and the others followed in terms of those European immigrants following in his footsteps. But I think because he was older and maybe in a sense, his time in Hollywood was shorter because um, he not only left the studio but died kind of early on. There's not a lot even written about him.
Yeah, I think that uh, that's all the factors you mention are correct, and then the way I also look at it, yeah, I think there's maybe other contributing reasons. Like I don't know, just the fact that he did not name Universal Studios after himself meant that a lot of people don't know that Laemmle is connected to Universal. Um, but also his temperament, which goes with the humanitarianism. I think he was great at promoting the films and great at promotion when he worked at Universal, and also a great letter writer when it came to trying to convince the State Department to honor his affidavits. But he really didn't care about his own legacy in the long term. He was not a big, um, I guess, puffed up, egotistical person who wanted his legacy to be preserved at all costs. And, he didn't create a Carl Laemmle estate or archive or anything, which is actually almost to the point of, like, I wish he had been a little bit more like that, because everything he had was just dispersed. And, there was a lot in the Margaret Herrick Library, but a lot of it is actually letters and things that were donated by William Wyler, who's another relative who kept much more. So, yeah, it was, he cared about taking care of the people who he left behind, but he did not really seem to worry about, I guess he figured that Universal was, he had done such a huge thing of creating Universal and it was still there, so, what else did he need to do, really? I don't know.
Well, and he is kind of the only mogul of that generation who doesn't have a bad reputation. So there's that as well.
No, I like that you recognize that, and I think it is true. I mean, he wasn't perfect though, and you he was a good guy and a kind-hearted guy for sure. Yeah, I think the only thing I found, he liked to gamble and go to the horse races, but it wasn't to the point of anything, and he did employ a lot of relatives, which some people didn't like because they said it was too much nepotism, but he did like to take care of people, I guess.
Enjoying the show? Click like and subscribe. There's a wonderful scene in the beginning of the movie when you purchase Carl Laemmle's cane from a flea market at the Santa Monica airport. What was that like for you?
When I started really in earnest wanting to make a film, I did feel that there were a lot of amazing uh, coincidences. I mean, I didn't know what kind of film it would become, but I was just so um it was amazing to get that cane, and it was amazing to find out about it because yeah, I need to tell exactly how I found out about it, okay? I was I got a text message all of a sudden one Sunday from Greg and Tish, Greg Laemmle and his wife Tish, had sent that they had received a message that somebody had seen this cane for sale in Palm Springs at an antique fair. So were we interested? Because they're not interested, but they always get people always send them anything to do with Laemmle. So I was very happy they shared the information. And then I contacted the seller and she the next week was going to the antique fair in Santa Monica Airport. So we went there and met her there, and it was amazing to be able to get that cane. Yeah, and also what's even more incredible is you really know it's Carl Laemmle's cane because it is engraved with his name around it. Otherwise, how would you really know for sure?
I don't know how many canes he had, but it certainly looks like the one that I see in a lot of photographs.
Yeah, I think then we did find one from the opening of Universal City that it looks very much like that, and it could very well be the same one. Which now, just now saying that right now, it's sort of hitting home to me in an even more incredible way. Like, wait a second, that actual cane was there at the opening of, like, literally until this second, it didn't quite jive like that in my brain. That is amazing. But what happened, like after I did scrounge up the money to buy it, luckily, I mean, it wasn't cheap to me. I'm not like a big collector, and we're making the budget, on a kind of a shoestring, but I couldn't let that pass me by. So we went to get it, and then it did give me energy when I felt confused about the film's direction in the editing process. I would go and say, okay, let me hold on to the cane and see, and this will give me some kind of good energy or direction. So yeah, yeah. Well, I I don't know. I just felt like if I hold that, then I feel like I can be a film producer too, and make a good movie. Like I really felt like this family legacy that you know I could take that on, even though it seemed a bit daunting actually. But it kind of empowered me, I should say. Um, yeah. And I do hope to donate it somewhere to some museum probably because it should be in a museum, I think.
How did Laemmle go about saving Jews from Nazi Germany?
Well, that is a very good question. Um, he was very involved when he saw what was happening in Germany, um, and was following everything very, very closely and very upset and disturbed. So people started Jews started writing to him from his hometown of Laupheim and the area around it, of Baden-Württemberg in southern Germany. Many, many people were writing at that time to get affidavits. He was able to provide a lot of affidavits, but the problem was that um, you needed to sponsor, and he could prove that he was able to sponsor them. But actually, the State Department was not always issuing the visas, even if somebody had an affidavit, they weren't honoring them all the time because of anti-Semitism in the US State Department and the quotas they had. And so, and they thought he was too old actually because he was 70, between 70 and 72. He'd already sold the studio, and they worried that if he passed away, that these people were still gonna become dependent on the government, and that he actually did provide in his will for them to some people, but but basically, the way he got them to honor the affidavits was by writing letters, and he wrote amazing letters, which I wish we could have included all of those in the documentary. But he wrote letters to the U.S. State Department, to Cordell Hull, who was the Secretary of State, and to the senator in California, Doc Weiler. He also tried to write to, he did write to William Randolph Hearst about putting articles or some kind of statement in the newspaper against Hitler, but Hearst wouldn't do that. He never responded. So that's, but I think the letters he wrote to the State Department and to the senators helped get the visas approved. So he really persevered.
Carl Laemmle died in Los Angeles in 1939. Is it safe to say that his final act was rescuing Jews?
Yes, I could say that's a good way to put it. Definitely.
You traveled from California to Germany, tracing the stories of families that Carl sponsored and visiting his birthplace in Laupheim. What surprised you most during that journey?
Okay, what surprised me most when we got to Germany and went to Laupheim and the other towns around there in Baden-Württemberg was really the the Germans we met who were working as volunteers, and not always volunteers, but who were working to preserve the history of Jews in that area. Not necessarily what happened during the Holocaust, because really most of that was destruction of things, not real. So they were preserving the hundreds of years of German Jewish history from before the Holocaust. That this whole area of Baden-Württemberg was dotted with these small Jewish communities, and most of them are really, none of them exist anymore. The Jewish communities in southern Germany are maybe have grown again in the cities, the main cities of Stuttgart or Munich. People have come from Eastern Europe, or some Jews that remained are there, but these towns have cemeteries that are preserved now, and they have. We went to the synagogue that was actually restored in Ichenhausen. So it really surprised me how much the Germans there cared about this history and sharing it, and they were very knowledgeable and generous and really remorseful, obviously, about what had happened, but really also seemed very connected to the history even themselves in a way that I had no idea that it would be like that.
Yeah, there was that great interaction you had with a street vendor who was telling you, did you know that there was a famous Hollywood mogul who came from this place?
That was funny because I was like I was just kind of playing along, but we were at that moment, like, getting ready to go to the exhibit. Yeah, so that was adorable, yeah. They were proud of that there. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, it seems like it's not just the institutions that have this historical memory that they're preserving it. People on the street as well seem to be pretty excited about it too.
Yeah, that was part of the Christmas fair. They have these Christmas fairs in the beginning of December. It seems like basically every day, not just the weekends. Like the entire month of December, the cities have these Christmas fairs, and um and I think those that booth, the men were from the Lions Club. The people there working in the booth were from the Lions Club of, or some kind of club of Stuttgart. Yeah, yeah, it was sweet.
Speaking of sweet, it's also, felt really fondly when you were talking about your family, also made Pfeffernuss. I was, thinking, oh yeah, we used to love Pfeffernuss as well. My grandma, introduced it to us. They used to sell them at Trader Joe's. Unfortunately, I don't think they do anymore, but whenever I see Pfeffernuss, I think about that and I buy them for my family.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, we actually found them for our screenings at in December when we were screening the film at because they were selling them then because of the holidays. Uh, yeah, yeah, it's funny. Yeah, that was something that I learned also that was, I don't know if it was exactly a surprise, but it was like something I was really curious when I went there, was to see what kind of things I found. I mean, I'd been to Germany before, but not thinking of it this way, and seeing what things would pop up from my past or my family that would resonate, where I think, "Oh, that's where this came from," you know? Yeah, then the cookies were one of those things.
Yeah, I appreciated, early in the documentary when you're talking about Carl, you sort of include a warts and all approach and sort of it humanizes him. And I think also, your explorations through Germany similarly were a way of, humanizing Germany and their response to, their history. So I thought that was really, a beautiful thing that you accomplished in the documentary.
I think that was my aim. I think that's my aim always in life, or as a human being and an artist and a person, is just to kind of I like connecting ideas and unifying things and kind of finding the 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 wholeness in places where we think there might not be that.
What's the best way for our audience to see Laemmle's list?
I would like anybody who's interested to sign up on our website for our mailing list, and that is the best way to stay up to date on the future screenings.
Well, thank you so much, Deborah, for joining us.
You're welcome, and thank you so much. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Joey. Thank you, Mike.
And to our audience, now back to your regularly scheduled lives.
Amusing Jews is here to amuse you. If you like being amused, go ahead and click like and subscribe.